Hey, this is Christian, and here in the whip shop, and I'm going to show today how to make a fall. So, get a couple examples here. So what we have here is a piece of heavy-duty Latigo, and this is cowhide, and as you can see, it's pretty hefty. It is 4.5 millimeter. So this is pretty thick. And I've cut it starting at almost, looks like about 9 millimeter. And the reason I chose that was because of the size of several different falls that I have here, several different whips. So this is an Old Joe strain, for example, and it ends at 6 millimeters, right before the fall hitch. So I'm measuring it right here. So basically, you want, when you make your fall, you want to measure how wide your whip is, and then make your fall roughly that same width, so that your taper continues on. Obviously, your hitch knot will be bigger, but then the whip will continue to taper. So, in this case, I'm not replacing this fall. This is when they came on it, but I'm making them to be for several different whips. Oh, here, let me grab the one I'm actually going to be doing it on. So this is a Rue Indie style that I made, and let's measure it. See what it comes down to. 6.6. Right before the fall. Let me do this on camera so you can see it. Right at 6, actually, right down by the fall hitch. So about 6 millimeter is roughly where you want to start on the width. But I found that you want it to be a little bit bigger than that. I like to go about 8 to give myself enough meat to go around where it's going to go through the thong. So you will open the eye up at the end, and you'll feed the thong on, and then you'll tie the fall hitch around it. Which is, one that's already on here. You can see, if you haven't used a whip, this is the fall here going through, and it comes around. So generally, as you're making your fall, you want to have it the same width as the end of your whip, tapering down to a point. Now, what is a point? A point will be, in my opinion, the width will be the same as the thickness, so that the end will be roughly round. And to round it off is where a big part of our time is going to go here. If you have a do a sketch. So if your fall, zoom in here as if it were looking at it up close. This is the end of the fall. Pardon my 3D drawing here. So this is at the end where it's tapering down. We want to trim it so that this and this are the same size. So we'll be tapering this off. We'll be cutting all this off, so they'll be tapering down. This is supposed to look like it's coming towards you for depth of field here. So our actual fall will taper. So one end right here, this area will be the same as your whip. Whip thong, right there. And down here, we want that to be round. You can read that. So, and to make it round, once we pair off this and we get it to the right width, and it tapers out all the way down to the end, then we're going to pare the 4 corners off of it. And by the piece that's remaining, we're going to do that by beveling all 4 corners off, leaving you with an octagon. So it will look something like this. So your fall will be an octagon on the end. Hopefully more even than my drawing. So we'll get started doing that next. All right, I've got the camera moved back around. Let's point it over at the bench. To start with, we'll get our piece of Latigo here. Actually, let me come in closer and see what we're doing. And the first thing we're going to do is cut a slit in the end. And to get the slit, I use this is just a sharp wood chisel, 1 inch. And we want to come back from the end. We're not going to put it right up against the end. Let me see if I can zoom in just a bit. Nope. That's what we're going to do. So there we go. There. So when we go to put this in, it's going to be in the center of the where the fall is, but we're going to come back from the end a little bit. We're going to give a bit of room down here so that we don't tear through the back end as we're pulling on it. So if it's good and sharp, just your hand is all you need. Push through it. As you can see, went through. So there is a nice slit. And that's how you do that. So now to begin beveling, I have a vise with just a metal rod in it. It's some handle foundation material. I'm going to put this right over there. All right. So next, to do that, you'll need a sharp knife. I have a couple different ones here. Depends on what you like to use. Different utility knives. I use this one most of the time. I like it a lot. But just a traditional box knife, that's common. But depends on what you want to use. So what we're going to do is we want to, the first thing we probably want to do is get that thickness down to where we want it. Like I said, I cut this with a strap cutter earlier off the hide to be about the width that I wanted. But I want to finish the final width to be round at the end. So I will actually measure the thickness here, and then I'm going to mark that on the fall. Now I know I'm coming down to. So, and I want that to be there by about the halfway mark. So we're going to go pretty serious, and then we're going to taper it slightly from there. I'm just following my line. Just like that. So now, that's a major drop off, obviously, right there. So I'm going to come back half of that distance. Now we're going to come back half of that. So just basically want to feather out that transition point. And we're doing this square still. It's not, we're not tapering the corners yet. right, just about there. And we can do a little bit more as we're doing the corners to bevel it. As you can see, I've got a piece of leather around my finger to protect it as I'm cutting it along here. But it's the same idea, depending, no matter what knife you use. It just needs to be sharp. Actually, that's a little sharper than the one I was just using. A little bump there. So that looks decent. But maybe just a touch more right here. Still kind of a sudden drop off. So as you can see, it goes gradually gets thicker and thicker. So it's a nice even taper all the way down. So depending on, like I said earlier, depending on the width of your whip, this may be a little bit too wide, but either way, that's what we're doing for this particular fall. This is a little bit shorter. This is about 29 inches. I usually make them closer to 36, but that's what this one is. So next we're going to bevel the four corners. So we'll just start by ever so slightly. See if I can get in here so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. Get some light on it. So you just want to do the corner. No, I'm out of frame, but going all the way down. So that's one corner. Now we're gonna go across and we're gonna do the top corner. I changed my hand position slightly to hold it. Actually need just a little bit more than that. And obviously it's better to take off too little than too much. Can't put it back on. So now I've got those two done, and depending on how you have learned to bevel, you could do the underside. I like to just flip it over and then do the same thing once more. So that noise is where it's rubbing across the leather. So I'm gonna actually get a little bit of cutting soap, just a little bit on my finger protector here. Don't want too much right now. We're gonna put lots on it later. So I'm even doing up around the loop a little bit. We want it to be paired all the way around, just a little bit though. We don't want to weaken that around where you're pulling on it. Just a bit more off of this section here. So I'm going to thin out that a little bit. It's fuzzy right there. But the point is you want to get that octagon. So we'll just take this off all the way down. Just like that. And if you miss any spots, you can touch it up. All right. So that's looking pretty good. We got trim around our loophole on the back side here just a little bit. Just want it to look nice and neat. Just like that. So it's pretty even taper, pretty even pairing. So I see a little bit of a white spot right there. I want to take off some of that. So yeah, step back and look at it. See if the taper looks like it's coming down how you want. Certainly make sure that it doesn't get wider anywhere. Right there. So that looks pretty darn good. It's basically an octagon for the last half right down here. Okay, so now comes the, how shall I say, messy part. I want to grease it up. I have it's a leather that I always use. This is just, I think this is cow, but it's just a loop I've tied in a knot, maybe 18 inches, yeah, 18-inch and stretched out, so double that. It's tied together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grease this up. I'm going to tie a luggage knot around it, like this. But you'll see that in just a second. So, grab plaiting soap, or you can use Pappy's Dubbin, or you can use the Aussie soap leather conditioner. I have the plaiting soap I've made myself. It's a mixture of lard and soap and neat's foot oil. And I'm experimenting with a few other recipes, but I like the way this soaks in and stays nice and slick while we're doing this. So this is still pretty hard and stiff. I'm just going to massage this into it. Get it really good and greasy. As you can see, it's really gross. This takes a minute to penetrate. It gets soaked into it. As you can see, some of the black dye is even coming off. Ugh. But that's okay. So now what we're going to do is tie this around here. Okay. And actually a tip I heard from Franco Zaccali was to leave the fall a lot longer than you need so that you can round it past where you need it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach hemostats to the end so I can hang on to it. You can get this direction so you can see what I'm doing. So we're just going to run this up and down. And this is rounding it. It's pushing in that grease and rounding off the sharp edges from where we paired it. So I've got my hand off to the side like this. Sometimes I grab it up on there, but mostly I'm just pulling on it. Pulling one hand here, and just working it. And as it starts to stick, feel it, and yeah, it's all rubbed in. I'm gonna add some more. This goop here, more plaiting soap. And we'll go back at it here. Not a lot to say. It's kind of self-evident what's going on. And oops, get him off the hook. So it's already way more supple than it was just a few minutes ago. Really let that work into it. Leather is malleable, somewhat like clay to a lesser degree. And there's lots of fun tooling projects that leather workers do, where you can stamp it and stuff, and uses that same property. Good to have a old paper towels handy. Didn't show that earlier. So yeah, get that all rolled up. Let that soak in just a few minutes. But the last step, now that it is all paired up and all the corners are beveled off and it's nice and round for about the last half, you've greased it up really thoroughly here. Then last step is to roll it. So I do that between a piece of brown paper or newspaper or something and a board. So I'll show that next. Okay, so I've greased up the fall and put a couple more coats on it actually, so it's even more floppy than it was. But here on the workbench, I've got a piece of brown paper and it's around another board, so it keeps it still a little bit. I've got another board here with a piece of paper around it that I just tape on from time to time. And we just want to roll this. Now, there's a trick to it. Because it's kind of square, it won't want to roll. Actually, I missed a spot there. That's where it was clamped. There's that little flare at the end. So you can just cut that off. So, there we go. So when you go to roll it, you don't want to go. So if you give it a little help by rolling it with this hand, and very gently rolling it. Put something heavy right here to keep it from falling off the bench. And this will begin to round those corners off a little bit. So, yeah, you get the idea. We're rolling it. It's soaking up. The paper's sucking out some of the grease as well as the leather itself is soaking it up. Notice the edges are getting a little hard again. They're not as pliable as they were. So I'm moving it up. Actually, right now I'm using this Pappy's Dubbin. It's almost gone, but I do like it. It's got, I don't know, maybe it's got a higher water content. It feels like it soaks in a little bit better in some cases, but it leaves it a little more sticky. For the initial though, I like my lard concoction. Just keep at it. Oh, here's something. If it's got a particularly tough corner that won't go over, you can just put it on the side so that the high part, the high corner is up a little bit. Just help encourage that rounding. Like I said, it's malleable like clay to a degree. So just round that over just a little bit. Doesn't take a lot. I'm not hitting it hard. I'm just trying to encourage that roundness just a touch. Oh, actually, here's just noticed something I missed. Where the hemostats were clamped, the last inch here, where it was clamp covering it up, it's actually not an octagon. It is actually square. So I'm going to fix that right now. Be very, very careful here at the end. There's not much to hold on to. Or, like Franco said, to just make it longer so that I don't have to deal with this right at the tip. But this, like I said, this is already at 29 inches, so I'd like to make the best use of it as I can. Alright, we're gonna move this up a little bit more. We're gonna fix that spot. It's a little too square. Yeah, that roll is way better now. Follow your own instructions, Christian. It works better. So yeah, just keep at it. It'll get there. And as it dries out, grease it up again. It's already super dry. It's just continuing to soak in. But you can see there's a lot of grease stuck in the paper here. Some more of my good stuff. So there you go. There's a beautifully tapered fall, pared down, ready to put on the whip. I would probably go at rolling it a little bit more till it's nice and round. I want this last half or so, at least the last foot, last third at minimum. I want to be basically no taper, but just make it nice and round and really nice and supple. Get that grease in there. And then the last step, I've seen different people do this different ways, but when you put it onto your whip and you start to lash it on, you've got this ugly tab sticking up here. So thread it onto your whip, and you've got this square tab sticking up right there. So what most people do is they will trim this area to basically be the same width as the split. So where's my paper? So when you go to cut your fall, deal with it being upside down, right? You hammer your slit in there. This distance across here, right across there, should be the same as here and as here. If it's a little bit too much, you want to cut that off so that it's the same distance. In addition, you'll want to nip off these corners so that your final fall will have a nice even size to it. This, there, all these sections are the same width. So in the end, it'll come up and it'll be the same distance all the way around. That's your final design. So you want this to be nice and consistent coming around. So you'll do that after you finished all this trimming and all the greasing and rubbing and all of the back and forth with the leather and stuff, getting it all lubed up. Then you'll trim it. So I would do that at this point here. And I have found you can do it with your razor knife. I found the chisel to be really nice to just put it right exactly where you want and just hit those two corners, or cut the length just so. But like I said, make sure you don't cut too close to that slit, or else it'll be too weak and it'll rip right through the end. But there you go. There's how to make your own fall from a piece of Latigo. I know white hide is common, even kangaroo. Actually, just the whips I have around here, I have quite a selection of different styles. That depends on your taste. This Joe strain has, I'm pretty sure this is kangaroo here. It's pretty thin, but it starts out the same width as the whip. But the thickness is obviously down at the end is not square. It's still a rectangle. So, I mean, Joe Strain knew what he's doing. But most of them I've seen works better to have that nice round end of it, and just feels to carry that weight out to the end better. But hopefully this has been helpful, and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. All right, it is the next day, and I have greased this up again. I rubbed it down with my leather again, and it finally has been able to roll. And last night, as you saw, it was pretty difficult for me to get this to actually roll smoothly, but now it totally is. Put some pretty heavy force on that to round those corners off. But yeah, that's basically round at this point. And oh yeah, the next thing that we're going to do now that this is finished is we're going to finish off the eyelet here at the top. So you can see that. So the way we do that is use our chisel, same one we cut the hole with. I want to see where the line is, and I want to go the same distance as the side there. So let's get a little more light. Come in just a little bit right there. And we're going to take these corners off as well. So that looks pretty good. Just give it a really brief bevel just to continue that on. It'll look really nice. Don't want to take too much. But there you go. And we'll grease that up as well where we just trimmed it. But that is your finished fall, and it's ready to be put on the whip. Now that it's nice and round, and I will store it in a Ziploc bag with more grease, allow it to soak up even more. But hopefully this tutorial has been helpful. Just remember, your overall plan is to get it to be round and roll it. And you want the overall shape to get like this in the eye. Come down to a taper. Oh, also, it's worth noting that once you start rolling these points off and make this round, it will actually be slightly narrower than where we trimmed it down to, even up at the top here. So I left it, I forget exactly what we measured it to, but 7.6 right there. which is about, what was that? About 1 mil over the width of my whip. So that was about exactly what we needed to leave it down to, so we can, when we bevel it down, it comes down to the width of our whip, and then we have a nice even taper out to our fine round point. All right, thank you.